All right, welcome back to another episode of Paranormal Bad Bitches. Brianna.
And Lydia.
We have a whole new setup. I hope you guys like it because we like it a lot more because we can actually talk and hang out and it's going to make it a lot easier.
Yeah.
We went to the Sally house and we're going to post that video at 6 p.m. on June 26th. It was pretty nuts. Today, we are reading some Reddit horror stories. And the first one is called Ghost/Spirit in Bathroom? ?
Well, that's a new one.
So at the time, we were young and just married. My husband was training in the Navy, so he was gone a lot. One night he was at work and I was home alone in the house. I had been sleeping in my closed bedroom. Fast forward to around the time my husband was coming home one night, I could hear the shower on. This would be in the bathroom down the hall. It was a small place and I had assumed it was him and I rolled over. After a while, I felt like it was taking too long, so I got up and I opened the door to go see what was going on. The whole house was dark, like I left it when I went to bed. I very carefully walked down the hall as it was all still dark. All of a sudden, my cat runs out of the bathroom and down the hall. I go to look in the bathroom and it's pitch dark with the shower running. There's no way the cat could have turned on the knob. It was an old place, so the knob was very hard for me to even turn on. Backtrack to months before, when we got the cat, he was a black young cat we found outside and brought him in. I always thought it was weird that whenever I started the shower, he would come running from wherever he was and sit on the ledge and watch me as I showered. Every time. All of this leading up to that night. We had lived in this base house in South Carolina at the time, and I was weirded out to live alone here. We moved and the cat eventually ran away at some point, but we never had anything happen again. It was just a little strange how this cat acted with this shower.
That's quite interesting.
I don't know what I would do if Lucifer started watching me shower. I'd probably kick his ass out.
I don't know, I feel like the difference is that they found them on the side of the road.
Yeah, I can see that. And then the next one says demons are nice.
Everyone has their own opinions about that, but alright, let's hear it.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree to disagree with that one. I'm going to preface this with the fact that I've only ever lived in the houses that have been highly active with paranormal activity. When I was growing up, I always had weird encounters with demons. My earliest memory is when I was 4 and I was at home in my room. I had just gotten yelled at for something. It was late and I noticed something stood in my doorway. It started to walk inside my room towards my closet. I got scared and screamed. My mom came running in and she asked me what happened. It was now standing in the corner across from my door. I said, "Don't you see it?" And my mom, thinking I was trying to scare her, she told me it was weird to play tricks on people and then left my room. Another time, I was at my grandma's house and a pitch black figure of a little boy ran into my room on all fours. It was, ugh.
I'm gonna just dip right now. I don't like that.
I think if I ever see like a creature on all fours, I'll just leave.
I'm done.
Sorry, I don't do crawling bitches. Another time, I was at my grandma's house and a pitch black figure of a little boy ran into my room on all fours. It obviously scared me and I screamed. Because my mom was missing, we all shared a bed. Well, they shared a bed, sorry. Him and his mom did.
Oh, okay.
She runs back into the room and I ask if the dogs are in their cages. She says no. I tell her what happened and she obviously doesn't believe me. After a while, I stopped being scared of them and just was okay with them being in my room. In fact, the figure of the little boy is probably the most mischievous spirit here. My family currently lives with my grandmother, and I've become acquainted with the other spirits here. So far, I've met the boy, the shadow figure, and the caretaker. That's their unofficial names. The shadow figure just stands in the corner and stares. The caretaker, they just randomly put your missing items on your dresser. And the boy greets our guests on the staircase. We like to fuck with our guests by saying that there is no one on the stairs, and yes, we are messing with them. Ask your questions in the comments. Don't become friends with demons.
Yeah. The only reason why they're probably nice is because you accepted them.
Right.
Like, you weren't scared.
Right.
Because, like, in my mind, I feel like that's what they prey on, is being scared.
Right.
That's why I try not to show fear at any investigation.
So that's why she just looks constipated sometimes. Or, like, resting bitch face. There's a couple of videos and I'm like, wow, she looks pissed.
No, I'm just holding back the fear so much. Like, I literally bite my cheek.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
Oh
but nothing's happened, so I think it works really well.
This one is pretty cool.
What's the title?
I volunteered after Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, and there was something there that still scares me to this day.
Oh, this will be interesting.
It's really cool. Okay, here it goes. I have a medical background and certification I rarely use, though I keep going back and paying to renew it. Anyhow, I volunteered almost immediately thinking it would help those who have lived through Katrina. That was not the case. There were a few of us who assigned once the water started to recede to find houses that had dead bodies in them. If you have ever had to do a dead body recovery, When it has been lying around in the heat and in the water for days, sometimes weeks at a time, you know how it smells. It does sort of smell like any other dead carcass, but worse. I can't explain it. Maybe somehow sweeter smelling? That is so descriptive. I did not need to know that.
I don't know how it would be sweet smelling, but
I feel like death just smells like death. Anyway, the key to not vomiting when you smell them is Vicks underneath and around your bottom of your nose. It doesn't keep all the smell out, but enough to where you can at least tolerate the smell without vomiting. We had to go to each house and go inside in wading boots and look for bodies. Many of them washed out to the sea, but some were still in the houses and they had lived in prior to the hurricane. If we found a dead body, we sprayed the big X on the outside of the house, and the other guy and I had been doing it for a while. We got assigned to each other almost every day. We got along okay, and he didn't vomit at the ones that had been gotten to. We came up to this one old shack. I say shack because it was pretty run down in what had been a very bad neighborhood. Right away, I got chills down my spine. I knew there was something really wrong. Not like find a body kind of wrong, but chilling almost kind of wrong. New Orleans has a certain area that just gives off these vibes, and understanding it's a lot of voodoo practiced in these areas. I want to go to New Orleans so bad.
What's a New Orleans?
A lot of voodoo.
Oh, yeah.
Like a sketchy amount of voodoo. I think it's super cool, but there's a lot of like witches and Wicca and stuff down there.
I feel like they also have good music.
They just have a good time.
Yeah.
Anyway, against everything my body was screaming at me, we went inside the house. The first thing I could smell was a body. The second was something almost earthly and moldy. I look at my partner, I will call him Jay. He was white as a sheet, and I could tell he was getting the same feeling I had been getting. It was obvious from the weird bones hanging in the ceiling. I would bet money that they were cats. Something had been going down in this house, as well as strange beads and carvings in the bare wood of the walls. We went into the kitchen, and there was a chain to a beam that was an old lady that was left of her.
Oh my god.
She had chained herself by her wrist to the beam. Her guts were falling out on the floor. The creepiest thing was her face still looked though as she were alive, staring at us with a wicked smile showing only partial teeth. They were nubs. My skin started crawling as the goosebumps spread over my body and my neck hair stood up. Suddenly, I heard almost unearthly cracking noise I have never heard in my life. And my fight or flight kicked in. Jay and I noped out of there. We quickly painted the X and literally ran to the next house. Now, I don't know if that old lady had practiced voodoo or whatever, but that scared the living shit out of me. It still gives me nightmares, and the people I feel sorry for are the ones who had to take that crazy lady out of there. Jay and I discussed it the night after we went back into our hotel north of there. We had heard the cracking too, but we both said it had to be the wind or something.
That is so crazy.
Yes, and one of the comments actually basically said, like, spiritually you have to ask for permission before you enter a residence that's not yours. So because they didn't ask before they went in, yeah.
I don't know if I'd handle I'd probably be pale as a sheet too if I saw that face.
Well, the fact she had chained herself.
Yeah.
Like, that's the part that would bother me more than anything.
Yeah, or the cat bones.
Or her intestines falling out of her body. Ugh. Gross.
I could probably handle that part. Just not the face. That's fucking creepy.
All right, next one. I died once. Here is my experience. This one's pretty cool.
I'm interested.
I suffered a massive stroke, so I apologize for any spelling, grammar, and format errors I make. It's okay. In 2012, I had suffered a stroke that killed me. As I slipped away, I had felt an overwhelming peace come over me like I had never felt before. Things went black, and then I was ascending above, and I saw the city below. Next to me, I heard a voice from an orb of varied colored lights. It also had mist coming off of it. It was a woman's voice, and she was telling me how excited she was to finally be with her family and her mom and dad again. I started to feel unsure and told her I wasn't supposed to be here. Suddenly, I was standing in an otherworldly place that was gorgeous. All of the structures and buildings were made of what looked to be similar to marble, but it had iridescent color because of the marbling. The buildings were decorated with colorful stones and gold embezzlements lining the buildings and glass fencing. I walked along the path with my arms crossed and holding my body. I felt lost, and everyone around me was chattering happily with each other in the otherworldly clothes of satin and linens. Some people held hands and were close and joyful with each other. This place was absolutely beautiful. I came upon an old man who was sitting near a tree in what seemed to be teaching a class, with people surrounding him. Some were sitting, others were standing. He called me over to join him. He was teaching lessons of what life on Earth was supposed to be like, what it originally was supposed to be, and how humans were supposed to be caring for the world and the inhabitants on it. but materialism had gotten in the way among other things. I felt an overwhelming knowledge come over me as he continued to teach his class about the world, the universe, life, and death. Everyone began to surround me, and the old man put his hand on my shoulder and said, "It's not your time yet. You will know when it is." The people from the class came and held me in a circle, and I was suddenly back. I opened my eyes and breathed in. I was alive and back in my earthly body. This is how I came to believe in God, and also reincarnation. I don't claim a religion because my beliefs are now a mix of things. Unfortunately, slowly that knowledge was instilled into me. It had slipped over the years, but I feel it back into my mind. To me, religion became several fingers pointing to the same being. I don't need religion to dictate my relationship with God. If you're all wondering, I am 27 now and suffer residual effects that have disabled me, and I keep going. My body may not work perfectly, but my brain still does, and I focus on expanding my knowledge in various areas.
That was cool.
Isn't that cool as shit?
Yeah.
I was reading that, and I was like, damn, that's like...
That is really cool.
Yeah, because I know there's quite a few stories that have something like that. Like an experience like that, where they like can see themselves or they know stuff they shouldn't. Like,
yeah, that was really interesting to hear.
It kind of gives me like peace of mind.
Yeah.
For a long time, I didn't believe in God.
Yeah.
And like even now, I struggle to believe in God. So I don't necessarily believe in God. I believe in just a higher power, but not necessarily what the Bible dictates.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's hard to say because like unless you know how I feel, you don't understand how like what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like it's so hard to put into words.
Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily believe in God either, but there is like something powerful than humans that's beyond us.
I was researching this a long time ago because I was always so curious to how so many people could have like the same idea of what after death is like.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently there's a chemical in your brain. It's the same chemical that triggers the REM sleep cycle.
Yeah.
And they say that after you die, it gets triggered as like a defense mechanism that your body has.
Oh.
And that's why people sometimes say that, like, it's not necessarily, like, an afterlife, but a dream that's in your head. So, for me, I can see both ways. Because, like, I can see it, but, like, a body's defense. Because the brain's crazy.
Yeah.
Your brain is so insane and so articulate and calculated. And, like, for a defense mechanism, it makes sense. Because you're about to die. Humans are scared to die. Other animals, yes, they're scared to die. But at that point, it's a part of the ecosystem and survival.
Right.
I don't know, I feel like it's a little different for humans because we can actually process life and death.
Yeah.
Which I know animals can too. I'm not saying that animals can't, but...
They process it a different way than
right,
humans.
like...
Yeah.
Unless it's like a mother and like a baby. Because motherly love's a real thing. I don't have it, but it's a real thing.
Yeah.
Like, I've watched so many videos of like a mother mourning her child. Or a child mourning their mother. Like, that part's a real thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's just an instinct. I don't have it. But it's there for most women.
I think you have it towards Kip and Lucifer. The motherly instinct, you know? Because, like, whenever, like, Kip coughs, like, you're like, gonna be
that's...
okay?
I feel like that's not a motherly instinct. It's anxiety.
I feel like if they were to fall off, you would catch them. Like, off the couch.
No. I let them fall and then laugh at them. I'd make sure they were okay, but I'd laugh.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
All right, next one. Our bizarre experiences with the forest behind our house eventually forced us to move out.
What's with all these forest stories? Like,
dude, I don't know. I've never had like a crazy experience outdoors. Sorry, I can't say the out SIDE because Kip will get really excited. But I've never experienced anything outdoors with anything paranormal.
Yeah, neither have I.
Like, ever.
Yeah.
So, like, the fact that, like, all of these, like, forest stories are on here, it's like, oh, my goodness.
Right. I don't know, the one forest story that we read so far that really stuck with me was the one, like, where they kept running in circles and, like, the morning birds were going off at, like...
The bells?
Yeah.
So, that one was crazy because then there was a similar story to it.
Yeah, that you read.
But, yeah, like, that one was crazy because there were so many, like, similar... things. But like I started thinking like I'm gonna say tornado, but now that I know tornadoes form this way first.
Bro,
fun
that
fact.
was insane.
Fun fact, dude. Did you know tornadoes form this way and then they start to turn into a tornado like that? I didn't fucking know that.
Yeah, neither did I until we watched that show.
Yeah. I was 8 years old when we first moved into that house. On the edge of the forest, my parents had their doubts about buying a house with a backyard bordered by the forest. They had concerns. They had concerns. My brain is ridiculous. I was sleeping until 11 today, which I never do. And I woke up to Lydia in my room. And I was like, wow, this is great. This is such a good wake-up call. I didn't mean to sleep till 11. I just wanted to go back to bed for a minute. And then I slept, 4 hours more. So I'm like half awake. I woke up 2 hours ago. It's a pretty bad excuse, but I'm gonna go with it.
I use that excuse all the time, so you're good.
Alright, my parents had their doubts about buying a house with a backyard bordered by a forest. They had concerns about wild animals getting into our bins or hurting our dogs, and were worried about one of us might go a little too far into the trees and get lost. But it was cheap, and my dad liked the seclusion, and my mom loved the house itself, and my siblings were excited about playing in the backyard and exploring the forest. Our first sign that something wasn't right was our dogs were absolutely terrified of the forest.
Yep.
Red flag. They never went into the forest for any reason. If a toy they had been playing with found its way past the tree line, they would refuse to retrieve it. That's
super
huge red flag.
Yeah.
Trust your dogs, dude.
They have better instincts than humans.
When one of us went in, they would pace anxiously until we returned.
Even bigger red flag.
The fact, okay, dogs are naturally protective of their owners. The fact they would not go in after you when they're anxious is huge red flag.
Yeah.
On occasion, we noticed the dog staring at a point of the forest in obvious distress, sometimes growling or barking, but we could never see anything there. My brother once carried one of the dogs into the trees to show her that there was nothing scary about it, but she wriggled her out of her grip and sprinted to the house in a panic. Why would you do that to your dog?
I feel like that's just so mean. Like, you're putting your dog in a very stressful situation for them.
Right, they can't process shit like humans do.
Yeah.
So the fact that they were anxious about the forest, like, bro, don't put them in a situation to be worse.
Makes me sad, those poor dogs.
If we were in the backyard when it was getting dark, we sometimes heard noises like someone was walking through the forest, sticks crunching underfoot, branches were being pushed aside. If we had called out, there was no response. But if we shined a flashlight around, we would occasionally catch a glimpse or just a split second of something that we could swear looked like a person walking in the dark. My parents quickly banned us from entering the forest at all after dark, and even during the day, we weren't allowed to go outside of the house, like out of the sight of the house. My sister's bedroom window looked out at the backyard and the forest beyond, and she remembers looking through her window one night and seeing a shadowy figure standing right at the edge of the backyard. She says there was something wrong with it, like it wasn't quite standing on the ground, but it was a little too tall to be a person, and it was quite distorted, and she was convinced it was staring at her. She called for her dad, saying there was a man in the yard staring through her window, and when he ran outside to catch a glimpse of whoever it was, she continued to watch the figure. It didn't move away, but when the light from my dad's flashlight passed over it, it suddenly wasn't there anymore.
I don't like that.
Nope. That reminds me of Lights Out.
Creepy ass movie.
We regularly heard knocking at the back door at night when no one was there. Our parents thought it was teenagers playing pranks and stopped bothering even opening the door until one rainy night when the knocking was persistent and agitated. My mom pointed out that there might be someone needing shelter from heavy rain outside, but when she opened the door, not only was there no one there, but there was no wet footprints on the porch. The knocking continued the whole time we lived there. It would happen several times in the span of a few weeks and then stopped for months and then start up again. My parents eventually installed a security camera and there was never anyone at the door. The camera wasn't all useless though. About 3 years into living there, my brother started having night terrors and sleepwalking. When he went sleepwalking, he would always go to the back door and start walking towards the forest. My mom, being a light sleeper, would hear the door open and would run out to get him before he made it into the forest. After the third or fourth time it happened, my brother asked to see the camera footage because he wanted to see how he looked when he was sleepwalking. I guess thinking it'd look funny, the footage showed him walking out into the porch and then pausing as if listening for something and shaking his head and then reluctantly walking into the forest as if being pulled forcefully, guided by something.
That's no sleepwalking.
That reminds me of The Conjuring.
Yeah.
One evening, my dad was in the backyard and he heard my sister calling him from the forest, seemingly in distress. I think it's a mimic.
Yeah.
You know what a mimic is?
It's someone who mimics another person's voice or figure that you know and love, right?
Sometimes. So it does. A mimic can literally take any form and any voice.
That's close.
Yeah. Thinking she had gone off exploring the forest and fallen over and hurt herself, he ran and started calling to her, but quickly realized it was too dark to see her, and when he couldn't pinpoint where her voice was coming from, he told her to wait where she was while he grabbed a flashlight. He ran back into the house for the flashlight and saw my sister inside, safe and completely unconcerned. At the time, my dad had not told us about hearing my sister's voice in the forest, so when I heard my mom's voice coming from the forest months later, while I was outside with the dogs one evening, I didn't question it, despite the fact that I see my mom inside recently and had not noticed her walk past me. My mom was calling me, saying that she had gotten her sweater caught in some branches and needed me to come help her. As I walked in, the dog started barking, alerting my dad, who saw me through the window wandering into the forest. He came outside and called to me and said I was just helping Mom. He yelled back and said Mom was inside, and that I needed to run back to the house as fast as I could, which I did.
Nope. I don't like that.
After this, my parents had a fence built around the backyard and started looking for a new place. In the time between the fence being built and us moving out, it got way worse. We heard knocking at the door regularly, and it was tapping on the windows as if someone was walking the perimeter of the house trying every single window.
No. I'd just stay at a hotel at that point until I found a new place.
We would often hear scratching and scraping sounds around the fence and voices beyond it. My brother's night terrors had gotten more frequent, and one night my mom didn't hear the door open when he was sleepwalking, and he woke up standing at the fence, staring into the forest, with the dogs barking at him.
Just got chills down my back.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. The last morning we spent there, less than 4 years after we moved in, we woke up to find the back door fully open, and the security camera footage showed it slowly open on its own.
No.
Since moving out, my brother's sleepwalking has stopped. Though he still gets night terrors, he suffers pretty bad from severe anxiety. A few nights ago, he called me out of the blue after a bit of small talk, and he asked me if I think the door being opened the final night means whatever was in there finally got in. He was trying to make light of it, saying he was getting into the spirit of Halloween, joking about that maybe we should all get exercise just in case something latched onto us all those years ago. But I think deeply he's bothered by everything that happened, and I know I still am. I still get nervous around dark wooded areas. I don't know what I think was out there in that forest behind our house at night, but I get the feeling that given the chance, it would have swallowed us whole.
Yeah, if I lived there, I would still be bothered by that, like, very easily.
No thanks.
I feel like, for me at least, if, like, the knocking became more consistent, I would just leave.
I mean, I feel like the second my dogs were triggered by the forest, I would have put a fence so high enough they couldn't even see it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have fucked around with it.
Especially, like, the sleepwalking.
Yeah, no.
Like, that does not sleepwalking.
No, I mean, that really reminds me of The Conjuring.
Yeah.
Like, oh, she's sleepwalking again.
Nope. Something's guiding you.
All right, last one. My son knows things he shouldn't.
What kind of things?
This is the first time posting here, so hang with me. I have 4 sons. My oldest is 6, and he's the one I'm curious about. Since he was very young, first learning to talk, he occasionally said things that didn't make sense. We were on vacation with my in-laws at the beach when he was 2.5, and he had a blast in the water with my husband and I. The next day, we got up bright and early to go back, and he adamantly refused. He kept insisting that there were alligators in the water, and we tried to reason with him that alligators didn't live in salt water, but he wasn't having it. Well, my husband had taken one of our twins, almost a year old, into the water, and they were playing. A few moments later, a man comes running from the pier yelling at him to get out of the water and for us to get away from the water. He explained that while they were watching the water from the pier, he saw an alligator just underneath the water, stalking my husband from a distance.
Your son is a psychic. That is crazy.
He called 911 and animal control arrived, and we were eventually able to locate and capture the alligator. It was 8 feet long.
Damn.
The explanation was that he was looking for a mate and had come through a freshwater river that runs into the sea.
Oh.
But how could my son have known that hours before it happened? Another time I was going outside to do yard work, and he told me not to go near the bushy fig tree, because there was a rattlesnake under it.
Dude, ain't no way. That is so impressive.
I thought it was just childhood imagination. I'm just doing the yard work, and I go over the tree, and I heard the rattle. Dude.
That's cool.
It was not happy to see me. I quickly got away, asked not to disturb it further, and I hope it'd go away on its own. He shouldn't have known it was there. Another time we were going to visit my mom, and he was asleep. I hadn't told him that we were going because she had a surprise for him. We got in the car, and he said, "You can't go this way to Grandma's because the bridge is out." We always went that way, and my husband was driving. The bridge had fully been operational the day before. Sure enough, we get to the bridge, and it's taped off with a detour sign, and there was no way he could have known that because he hadn't gotten out yet. Especially since my cousin is the local supervisor, and he didn't tell anyone until after I called him. I honestly find this a little creepy because I can't logically explain it. There's no logic behind that. Sorry, your kid's a psychic.
Yeah, for real.
There's no trying to like...
That is so cool, though.
That really is, dude.
Especially at such a young age.
You better water that seed.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow. That like kind of blows my mind a little bit.
Yeah.
Like it's hard for me to process that. Yawning is so contagious. I bet you're doing it now. If I'm right, you have to go follow our YouTube.
And comment down below.
That you yawned.
That you yawned.
Well, I think that's it for this week. Any life updates you'd like to add?
I don't think so.
Same. If you like the video to let us know. If you guys don't like the video, comment down below and tell us why. And if you guys keep finding yourselves coming back to this channel, make sure you guys subscribe, as we're only going to get better from here, and we really enjoy doing this. So I hope you guys tag along for the journey, and we will see you guys in 2 weeks. Peace!